You're not going to believe what was just said by Trump, by Dennis Porter, and by Jerome Powell. We'll go through that because this was supposed to be a big day. 3 things that could be huge for crypto. We have a news article earlier today, the Street Roundtable, talking about how this could be a very volatile day for Bitcoin because of everything that's going to be talked about. People were hinting that something massive was coming today. And to be clear, the day's not over yet, but we'll go through what was said. I'll explain my thoughts on it. Bitcoin was not impressed by what was said. You can see we are very close to the lows that we saw yesterday at 111,500. We're at 111,800. So again, we'll go through that. We'll go through some big potential news later this week. Actually, something that dragged down the market a little bit today is going to be addressed later this week. So we'll be going through that as well. If you don't mind, hit subscribe so you can see future videos just like this one. If you want to trade crypto, there are links underneath the video. You can check out BYDeFi. You can start trading in just a few minutes. There, they don't KYC. You don't need a VPN. They told me you can trade from every country but China, basically. You can get a bonus of $2,000, up to $2,000. And if you deposit less, you can still get a bonus. So check those out underneath the video. Let's start here. The NASDAQ down 1%. This is the first day in a while that I remember the NASDAQ being down. It seems like we've been nothing but up and to the right. Probably good for it to slow down just a little bit because we have been racing up. It seems like a 0.5 point every single day or 0.5% every single day on the NASDAQ, the S&P 500. Gold is moving up a little bit today. It was at all-time highs earlier in the day, but coming down a little bit now. Bitcoin has seen some liquidations over the last 24 hours. We've actually seen more Ethereum liquidated than Bitcoin, but for the most part, it's just kind of staying stagnant here between 111,500 and 113,000. And a lot of this, I think, is due to the speeches today. Everyone wanted to know what the speeches were going to say or what people were going to say. Trump, Powell, and Dennis Porter. Earlier today, we looked at this article. Trump, Powell, and Porter, 3 big announcements to watch today. All could have been directly correlated to the price of Bitcoin or could have directly impacted Bitcoin. So let's go through one at a time what they all said. First of all, Dennis Porter, I said this morning, he oftentimes hypes up announcements that don't really make that big of a difference in the short term. And it seems like this was another one. I see a lot of people giving him a hard time, saying that they're canceling him. Basically, he made this announcement, and it was like an hour late. Extremely pro-Bitcoin candidate officially declares candidacy for governor of California, declares support for strategic Bitcoin reserve in California. All right, so the big announcement was that someone was running for politics that's pro-Bitcoin. I think this obviously is a bit of a letdown for a lot of people. I said this morning I wasn't, holding my breath that we were going to hear something amazing today. I think this is good, right? If he becomes president and just as more politicians, are pro-Bitcoin, I think it's good. But the president of the United States is pro-Bitcoin. So just talking about someone that could possibly maybe be the governor of California who's pro-Bitcoin isn't that big of a deal. We have a Bitcoiner that's literally talked at Bitcoin conferences, created a strategic reserve, and he is the head of the nation. So this doesn't seem like it is massive breaking news by any means. So yeah, let me know what you think about this announcement down below in the comment section. Now, the reason that the stock market is down today, I think, is largely due to Jerome Powell and just, like I said, a cooling off day. Fed Jerome Powell says uncertainty over inflation's path remains high. He also said the downside risks to employment have risen, so causing maybe a little bit of fear over future rate cuts because he said they still don't know what inflation's going to look like moving forward. We already knew that, right? Nothing's really changed. I didn't think anything would really change from what he said just a week or two ago. I think this is more of the same of what he said in the past, and they're just going to take meetings one by one. Right? Now, later this week, we do have PCE come out, which is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. This comes out on the 26th, so on Friday. Be on the lookout for this. This will kind of drive the narrative for the future week or two until we see PPI and CPI come out. And this will drive a little bit of what the Fed does for the next meeting. Keep in mind, the market is pricing in that they're going to have a rate cut at the next meeting. So I think this just, tempered the market's expectations a little bit, but it's largely the same thing that we've heard in the past, so I'm not worried. Trump, a lot of people were thinking maybe he would talk about Bitcoin today because the speech was going to include the decay of global institutions, a vision for a new world order, maybe talking about Bitcoin. However, he didn't really talk about that. Trump takes shots at the UN, climate change, and immigration policies in his speech. Trump lambasted the United Nations and countries around the world during a nearly hour-long speech today at the UN General Assembly. So he basically went there and just grilled the people that were right in front of him. But he said Trump admonished the UN over what he views as its ineffectiveness. He said some countries are going to hell over their immigration policies, and he blasted climate change as the greatest con ever perpetrated on the world. All right, kind of interesting. And I mean, nothing to do with Bitcoin, I suppose. But yeah, I guess a lot of people would be surprised to hear that he said some countries are going to hell, like the entire countries are going to hell or something, or the politicians. I'm not exactly sure. But obviously Trump has been, I think, a little bit less wild this presidency than the previous presidency, or a little bit less, a little bit easier to curtail. But yeah, this is interesting. Nothing about Bitcoin. So the market, I think, is a little bit let down, right? There are three big speeches. All of them could have to do with Bitcoin, but none of them were having to do with Bitcoin at all. Keep in mind, though, we did get good news earlier today. The SEC is going to allow crypto companies to launch products in the U.S. without burdensome regulatory requirements. We're still getting companies that are acquiring hundreds of millions of dollars of Ethereum and Bitcoin. Each day, it seems like we're getting a new company. I've never heard of FG Nexus, but they just bought 50,000 Ethereum. So good for them. There are going to be more and more treasury companies as well. I just saw on CNBC that Bitwise's CIO, Matt Haugen, said that corporate balance sheets will double over the next year, the Bitcoin on them. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. We've already seen that in the last year. If it doubles again, we're going to see over 1 million Bitcoin bought. And yes, there have been some weaker holders or some just, some whales that have made 1,000x on their Bitcoin. And they've sold some, right? We're seeing some choppiness right now over the uncertainty of the future, right? Are we going to go into another economic recession? Are we going to see some weakness in the economy? Are we really going to see all those rate cuts in the future? And yet, Bitcoin continues to set higher highs and higher lows when you zoom out. We have gold hitting new all-time highs, so hard assets are doing well. Of course, yes, we have come down a little bit on Bitcoin over the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks. But this is natural. I mean, you zoom out, we're up from $16,000 just 3 years ago to $111,000 now, and people are a bit worried, right? Like RSI has cooled down significantly. It seems like this is a bit of the calm before the storm. I'm still very bullish. We're still going to see rate cuts happen this year, which is extremely bullish for risk on assets. And we're gonna see low pullbacks. So be ready. Right? Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Let me know if this is something that you would have never expected from Trump. Right? Let me know. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. If you do want to trade, like I said, there are links underneath the video to BYDFi. We are at the support level we saw yesterday, so maybe you want to put in a long position, or maybe you want to short the market, thinking we're going to break down. Of course, approach at your own risk. There are links to other exchanges too, like BTCC, BTCC, WEEX, and BLOFIN. I use multiple exchanges. A lot of them allow you to trade with Coin M. BYDFi does that, so you can trade crypto with crypto. BLOFIN does that as well. I really like BLOFIN, and they've been doing that. I think WEEX might do that as well, but you can trade, like, for example, you can trade Bitcoin with Bitcoin as collateral. I do that every once in a while because you can actually stack more Bitcoin that way. You can actually get better returns because not only will you get more Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin that you have has gone up in price. And it allows you to kind of stay in the assets even when you take profit if you want to. Like during a bull run, right? Let's say you're trading around and you trade and you close a trade and then you wait like a couple weeks. And then you trade and then close the trade and then wait a couple weeks. You don't want to miss out on one of these big moves. And if you keep your crypto in Coin M, right? If you're keeping Bitcoin ready to trade. Even when you take profits, you can still take advantage of those big moves upward, even if you don't have a trade. Now, there are some extra risks depending on the platform. The price of Bitcoin, like let's say Bitcoin goes down a little bit, it can change the liquidation price. So you have to keep an eye on that, but you can always add more margin. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts on all this underneath the video. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all.